Our presenter is John Valley. He's a policy and outreach director, and I'll let you take it from here, John.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Stephanie, it's great to be here. Really appreciate the invitation from CODSN. I actually was at Breaking Barriers earlier this year and got to see some of their work with the community. And it was great and impressive, the turnout and the amount of people that CODSN, I'm going to have to remember that, gets to work with on a regular basis is something that we really are impressed by at Treasury, which is where I work. So the fact that we were able to get this invitation to share ABLE information with you tonight, I jumped at the opportunity. My hope is that I'll be able to give you a nice overview of how ABLE works as a program, answer any questions you may have. If you have any specific related questions to your personal situation or a family member that you're working with that maybe needs a little more attention, we can take that offline, and either of the Stephanies can get your contact information and we can coordinate that to make sure we get you the information you need. Hopefully this won't take more than a half hour or so, depending on the amount of questions we get, but I will take breaks every 5 to 7 minutes just to see if anything needs to be clarified that I've spoken about. And of course, we'll leave time at the end if there's any remaining lingering questions that I didn't touch that you were hopefully going to get some more insight on. And hopefully we'll be done relatively quickly and be respectful of everyone's time. But hopefully this is information that will not only benefit you, but people you love and make lives easier for you as you're navigating a very challenging disability system. The ABLE program hopefully is another tool in the toolbox to make it a little easier to navigate. So with that, I'll go ahead and start my presentation. The Oregon ABLE Savings Plan is one of the 3 programs we implement as a savings program at Oregon Treasury. The one that you might have been most familiar with is the Oregon College Savings Plan. It's now called the Embark program. We changed that name back in September. It's a 529 account where you put money into an investment savings account and save for post-secondary education expenses. A little over 10 years ago, Congress decided to create a disability savings program called ABLE, modeled after the 529 program. So 529 is a section of the Federal Revenue Code where Congress authorized states to create these college savings programs. ABLE's 529A. So that's why we implemented at Treasury. It's very similar to the Embark/College Savings Plan. So if any of you had an account through that, this might sound a little familiar in the sense that it's an after-tax program. But as I stated earlier, instead of saving for post-secondary education expenses, you're saving for disability-related living expenses that improves a person's quality of life. And the main reason it was actually created is that if you're living with a mental or physical disability, you're not supposed to have more than $2,000 worth of assets or you can lose your benefits. My guess is a lot of people on this call tonight have heard the term spend down. I like to say ABLE was created to avoid the spend down. So if you don't remember anything, maybe remember that. That would be the one thing. ABLE was created to avoid the spend down. We'll go in a little more detail about how that works. But Stephanie C., you can go to the next slide. So who qualifies for ABLE? We use the definition from the Social Security Administration. I don't need to read the whole thing. Basically, what you need to know is that if you're living with a mental or physical disability and you want to open up an ABLE account and you feel like you meet that definition, there'll be a form on our website that says, yes, there's a medical professional, a doctor that says I am, or my son or my daughter or my family member is disabled. You hold on to that. You do not turn that into us. We at Treasury don't have the ability to do a background check on everyone's medical history. We just don't have the capacity to do that. So it's sort of on the honor code. If you're deciding to open up an ABLE account, we assume you're able to meet the definition by the Social Security Administration. If you ever get audited by the Department of Revenue, which is a different agency than us at Treasury, you want to make sure you have access to the doctor who says, yes, this person has a mental or physical disability. Since I've been doing this for over 10 years, I've never met anyone who tried to pretend they were disabled in order to open up an ABLE account. It's not something you see a lot of fraud around, but just wanted to let you know that when you go online, if you open an account, you would hold on to that form. If you ever get audited, you get that medical professional saying, yes, this person who we open up an ABLE account or myself is meeting the definition of having a disability. The one thing I wanted to point out is that the age of onset of that disability currently has to be that you got your disability before you turn 26 years old. What does that mean? So if you're 40 years old, you were born with Down syndrome. That happened before you were 26. So you could open up an ABLE account. However, if I was walking down the street, I got hit by a car, believe it or not, I'm older than 26 years old. I would potentially want an ABLE account because now quadriplegic, I'm in a wheelchair, I'm disabled. I would not be able to open up an ABLE account because that happened after I was 26. Now, that age of onset is going to change come January 1st, where the onset age of eligibility is going from 26 to 46, which obviously increased more people's eligibility to open up an account. That was done because there were a lot of people, whether they were a veteran serving overseas, they stepped in an IED serving our country, they were 30 years old, came back home and couldn't open up an ABLE account. Or you're 35 years old and you get in a car accident. You're now disabled and you want to open up an ABLE account. You couldn't do that because it happened after you were 26. That's going to raise to 46 as of January 1st. So just keep that in mind. We're about 6-7 weeks away from that. But when you have your disability is important. And again, if you were born with it, no matter how old you are, you shouldn't have any problem opening an ABLE account. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to take a quick pause to make sure if that needs any clarification or what I talked about of why ABLE was created, if people have any questions about that. Not seeing any or hearing any or raise hands. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide if that's okay, Stephanie. So who can manage the ABLE account? I talked about the Embark/the Oregon College Savings Plan before. I have 2 kids myself. I have a 20-year-old, and it's hard to believe he's a kid still, but he's 20, and a 16-year-old. And each of them have a college savings plan/Embark account. I'm the account owner. I've identified them as being a beneficiary, but it's my money as the account owner. ABLE's a little different in the sense that the beneficiary is the account owner. It is their money. So with the college savings plan, if I got in a car accident and I needed to make car repairs, I could take money out of the Oregon College Savings Plan/Embark account and use that. There's some penalties involved, but it's my money. I can take it out of my son or daughter's account. However, if I had an ABLE account for my son or daughter and I got a car accident, I could not take that money out to make car repairs unless it was for their benefit. It's their money as the beneficiary/account owner. Now, if they're a minor, you can have a parent manage the account for them, a grandparent. If they're over 18 and they can't manage the account themselves, they can identify a power of attorney, a conservator, someone to be their authorized legal representative. And again, that can be a parent or a relative. But it's always important to remember that whoever this disabled person is, it is their money, even if they're not managing it themselves, and whether they're under 18 or over 18. Any questions about who can manage an account? Yeah, Stephanie C.
I have a question about the authorized legal representative.
Mhm.
I actually had a family reach out and ask if there can be a secondary ALR in case something happens to them.
Yes, you can do that. And actually, sometimes you can do that when you open the account. It will actually say if there's someone if something were to happen to the account owner or the account manager, you can do that. What I would recommend, because I know this comes up with the Embark program, the college savings one, is that it's a similar situation. So if I was the account owner and I identified my wife as the successor account owner, the usual question I'll get is like, well, what if you and your wife are in the same plane crash or the same, who then manages the account? It's important if you have certain things that you want to have happen with the account and you're managing it, you make that clear in your will. And if it's not the beneficiary who's unable to do that, you should make very clear what the expectation is, who to manage that account if something were to happen to the person, the ALR managing it. I hope that helps address that question, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. I don't think there's any other questions on that, so we can go to the next slide unless you see one. It's important to remember that this is an after-tax program. So what does that mean? So you get your paycheck, you have your Social Security and your Medicare or other taxes taken out, and then you make a contribution to your ABLE account. All the interest you're earning is tax-free, but you have to use it for an eligible expense, and we'll talk what specifically that is, but it's basically anything that improves the quality of life of the disabled person. So you have Investments going into this investment savings account, you're earning interest tax free. Plus, every year, your contributions, you're eligible for a state tax credit. It's up to $360 if you're a joint filer, $180 if you're a single filer. Other people can contribute to the account besides family members. And as long as they're paying Oregon state income taxes, they would be eligible for that tax credit as well. We actually have an e-gift feature on the website. So if you have an account and holiday or birthday's coming up and you're trying to think of a good gift idea, you can email friends and family and say, hey, you can make a contribution to my son or daughter's ABLE account or my ABLE account. And if you do, you'll be eligible for a state income tax credit. Just something to think about. A lot of people like to take advantage of that. You can go to the next slide, Stephanie C. So what can you use ABLE funds for? There's so many different things. I get this question a lot because there's not one set criteria. It's anything that improves the quality of life of the person with a disability. So those could obviously be healthcare costs, but they could be transportation costs. They could be housing costs. You see the list of various things that can be used for ABLE. The anecdote that I like to share that helps me remember it, because it is a common question, is that when they were doing the rulemaking for this a little over 10 years ago, the IRS, who are part of the National Treasury Department, did some field hearings and accepted public comment of what ABLE could or should look like. And when they were doing one of these field hearings, there was a parent of an autistic 10-year-old child, and they came to the hearing and said, I would love to be able to use ABLE funds to take my autistic son to Disneyland. Is that an eligible expense? And I'm paraphrasing here, but the IRS person came back and said, well, do you think it's going to improve your son's quality of life? Parent came back and said, what's Disneyland? It's the happiest place on earth. I certainly hope so. And then they said, well, there you go. That's an eligible expense. And the reason I share that Disneyland story is that I want you to keep that in mind. If you're ever going through this mental checklist in your head, it's like, well, can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? Remember that you could use ABLE funds for a 10-year-old kid who wanted to go to Disneyland and it would improve his quality of life because he was autistic. That was considered an eligible expense. So that hopefully gives you some sense of the breadth of what you can use ABLE funds for. I'm going to take a quick pause, see if there's any questions about that, the tax credit, or anything else I've talked about the program that people may want to have clarified or have a question about.
I do have a question in the chat if there's a minimum contribution required to get the state tax credit.
There is not a minimum contribution. What I will say about the tax credit, and it's a great question, is that it's means tested. So what does that mean? It's true not only for the ABLE program, but it's also true for the Embark program, which means the more you earn or more your gross income is, the more you have to contribute in order to maximize the tax credit. So Stephanie, see if you want to go back to the slide that has the tax credit on it. Oop, back the other way. One more. There we go. That one. Oh, you got it. So one that has the $360 and the $180. So I think it's the next one down. There, nope, one more. Number 5. There it is.
So sorry,
So-
everybody.
That's okay. We're good. So what that means is that if your joint income, for example, is $25,000 or less, it's a dollar for dollar match. So if you're a single filer, for example, and you put 180 in, you get $180 tax credit. However, if your joint income is $7,200 or more, your maximum that you'd have to, or the minimum you'd have to put in to get to $360. Sorry, totally messed. Rewind. I'm going to say that again. If your joint income is $250,000 or more, in order to get the $360 tax credit, you'd have to contribute $7,200 or more in order to maximize that tax credit. So the point is that if you're earning more money, $250,000 or more, you'll have to contribute more in order to get the full tax credit. However, if your joint income or individual income is lower, you potentially get a dollar for dollar match. There's a thing on our website that has a graphic letting you know what income level you would be at, depending on how much you earn. There's like 5 different ones. This is something that the state legislature decided to do because they wanted to make it more fair and progressive as a tax credit. So I know I kind of mixed that up in the middle, but hopefully that answered that question. Feel free to let me know if there's a follow-up to that.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And then Stephanie C, we can go on to the other slides unless there's another question.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So, would you be able to utilize both the Oregon College Savings Plan credit and the ABLE credit on both of them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you can make contributions to both, and you would get a tax credit for each contributions you made to each program. And it doesn't have to be to the same account. So for example, if I had 2 kids that I was managing, well, for example, for Embark, I get I'll get my tax credit not only for the contributions I make to my son's account, but to my daughter's account. And if my son and daughter not only had Embark accounts, but they had ABLE accounts, I would have separate sort of abilities to get tax credit for all my ABLE contributions and all my Embark contributions. So that's a really good question. And so they're separate. Hopefully that answered that. But if there's any follow-up, please let me know. I think we can go to the next slide then. So unlike Embark, where there is no annual fee with it, like the college savings plan, there is an annual fee with ABLE. It's $35. It'll automatically be taken out of your account every quarter at $8.75. There is a annual base fee based on which investment portfolio you put it in. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide of what those are. Those are 4. You can go to the next slide, Stephanie. There is a cash option, which is FDIC insured. And then there's 3 investment options: a conservative investment option, a moderate investment option, and an aggressive investment option. So what does all that mean? The cash option, since it's FDIC insured, means whatever money you earn in interest is potentially going to be lose, because with every investment, there's a risk, but you'll never lose your principal or whatever you contributed to the account. That's what it means when it's FDIC insured. So a lot of people are a little nervous about investing in the market. And if anyone's watching the stock market over the last several months, it's kind of up and down. People get really nervous about that. If you're worried about the volatility or the kind of roller coaster ride you get with investing in the market, you can put it in the FDIC insured option, and you'll never lose whatever your principal / original or all your contributions were. It's very popular with a lot of families. It's tied to the national interest rate because, you know, people wonder what the rate of return is. A few years ago, it was at 0 when we were in the pandemic. It's since, again, if you've been watching the national news, it was up a little over 4 points. It's now a little under 4%. And that'll change whatever the national interest rate is determined to be by the Fed, the federal bank. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And then on the investment options, we've tried to simplify it a little bit, because with Embark / college savings, there's 15 investment portfolios. There's 3 with ABLE. And we just want to make it easier for people to be able to choose what they want. And you can put 50% in a moderate investment portfolio and then 50% in the FDIC. And if you don't like your rate of return, you can change your allocation of whatever you contributed to your ABLE account twice within a calendar year. So maybe you started off putting 50% in the, as I said, FDIC insured and 50% in the moderate. And you're like, you know what, I don't like that. You can decide, you know what, I'm going to put 25% in the aggressive and then 75% in the FDIC insured. Not a problem. Again, you can make those changes twice within a calendar year. Any questions about the investment portfolio, how they work, or anything else I've talked about so far? Okay, we can go to the next slide then. One of the nice enhancements we have with ABLE is that we've offered a prepaid card to people who have an ABLE account. It's not required, but it is something a lot of people like, where you can basically use a card kind of like a debit card, but instead of being tied to your bank account or credit union account, it's tied to your ABLE account. And you can put as much or as little on that card as you want. So if you wanted to put $50 a week and have it loaded that way, or $50 a month, you can load it that way. There's no requirement of how you load it or when you load it. One of the features that I know a lot of parents like is that you can put what has been sometimes called as guardrails or parameters of where you can spend the money. I've had some parents tell me that they have a 15-year-old high school student whose disability, if they were given the chance to go to the local 7-Eleven or grocery store and they had a prepaid card, they'd buy everyone a candy bar or buy everyone a Slurpee, and all the money in their ABLE account would be gone. Well, if you're worried about that, you can just put a certain amount on, not only on the card, but you can also put certain stores that you can or can't spend it at. For example, if your son or daughter and you're a parent worried about them using the ABLE prepaid card at GameStop and buying all the video games, I've had someone tell me that. You can say you can't use it at GameStop, and then they wouldn't be tempted to have the ability to spend all their ABLE funds. So there's just some flexibility within that. There's a $1.25 monthly fee associated with it that will automatically be taken out of the account every month. Again, this is an option and it's not required, but it is something that a lot of people like to have, especially under those circumstances that I described. If you're a parent of a teenager that wants to not only worry the potential of losing all the funds in the account, but also maybe use it as a financial literacy tool to help show how you can budget. And if there is $100 a month on a card, how do you budget how you're going to spend that over the next 3 or 4 weeks? So it can be a teaching tool as well. Any questions about the prepaid card or anything else, again, is of what we've been talking about so far with the program? Okay, we can go to the next slide. It's important to know that it's one account per person as it relates to ABLE. It's an annual contribution limit that's tied to the national gift tax. So this year it's at $19,000. Last year it was at $18,000. Next year it's going to be at $20,000. We just found out. So it does fluctuate. It's really important to remember that if you receive SSI, there is a $100,000 limit of what you can have in your ABLE account before it starts impacting your benefits. That's only true for SSI. If you're receiving Medicaid, SSDI, or other benefits from the government regarding your disability, you do not have that $100,000 limit for the ABLE funds in your account. It's only true if you're receiving SSI. And we will let you know if you're getting close to that. Now, with the annual contribution limit, it's going to take a while to get to $100,000, but it's something to keep in mind. If you don't receive SSI, the limit of how much you can contribute to an account is $400,000. And how much, so that's what you can contribute, can earn more in interest. But that's, again, going to be really hard to reach if you're doing the annual, even maxing on the contribution limit. One thing I wanted to let folks know about is that ABLE was really designed to deal with short-term and mid-term everyday living expenses. So we talked before about rent, groceries, healthcare costs. However, if you had like a big chunk of money that maybe you got from an inheritance, or maybe you're in a car accident and a legal judgment, and there's like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 that you're trying to figure out what to do. Obviously, there's an account limit of how much you can contribute to your ABLE account. For longer term savings or big chunks of money, there's something that we call special needs trusts, which are very complementary to ABLE. I know last year we put together an ABLE summit, and some people thought if you had an ABLE account, you couldn't have a special needs trust, or if you had a special needs trust, you couldn't have an ABLE account. That is not true. They are complementary to each other. We don't implement special needs trusts at Treasury. If anyone's interested, I know the ARC, for example, manages a pooled special needs trust. So if people are interested in looking at that, let us know and we can put you in the right direction as far as talking to people about opening that if you want to. But again, the ABLE account was created to deal with those everyday short-term, mid-term living costs. If you have a longer-term savings need, you may want to look at a special needs trust instead. We can go to the next slide. And then those people who are disabled and are working or want to work, you may have seen this as a potential issue. That, again, this goes back to the asset limit, how you're not supposed to have more than $2,000 worth of assets, or you can lose your benefits. Well, one of the things that's considered an asset is a retirement account. So if you're disabled and you're working and your employer is offering you to have a 401k or a 403b retirement account, and they'll make contributions to it, that doesn't really help you, because if you open that up, or if you have contributions made to a retirement account, it's going to be considered an asset and you can lose your benefits. Because of that, Congress authorized the creation of Able to Work. So if you're an employee that can't necessarily have a retirement account because of that asset limit, you can contribute an additional, this year there's a formula, a little over $15,000 on top of that $19,000 annual contribution limit. but that extra 15 has to come from you as the employee / disabled person. It can't come from other people. So that $19,000 annual contribution limit that we talked about in the other slide takes in all the people who are contributing to your account. If you're working and you're disabled and you're the employee who wants to contribute more because you can't have a retirement account, then you can contribute an extra 15,000, a little more than that, 15,060 on top of that annual contribution limit. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to take one last pause here to see if there's any questions about that or anything else I've talked about related to the contribution limits, tax benefits, who can open an account, who can manage an account, or anything else we've talked about tonight. I see some things in the chat, but I haven't looked at the questions. Questions in there?
I have already answered the question.
There we go. Then are there any other questions? Well, if you go to the next, oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
Sorry, I was trying to remember the name of what I'm trying to ask, but so my son has had an Able account for I think about 5 years now, and we've never done the investment option. But I feel like once we saved a certain amount of money, there was like this addition put in, and it's called like a reinvestment, something that pops up every so often. And it actually has been increasing like every year.
Not quite sure what you're referring to. The only thing I
Okay.
can think of is sometimes we will let people know if you get a tax, like a return on your kicker.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll let people know you can take that and put that into your Able account or your Embark account. But I'm not.
Okay.
Maybe Stephanie, you can show me whatever it is offline, and then I can maybe better identify what it is and how that
Okay.
might be applicable to other people.
Yeah, I'm
Doesn't-
not complaining because it's just like more money.
No, which is
in the
great, but I
account.
want other people to know about it. And I think that the important thing to remember with everything in Able is that it's not going to solve all of your financial needs by having an Able account. There's some nice benefits that are associated with it. I think the biggest thing, and we kind of started off talking about avoid the spend down, open up an Able account. That's probably the main key benefit. And that's really why it was created. Now, if you get some tax credits for your contributions, obviously there's a benefit of maybe having a financial literacy tool where people can be a little more empowered by being able to see how they can budget funds with a prepaid card, see how, compound interest works over time if the account is growing, things like that. But I think the main thing is that if you're dealing with that asset limit, especially if you're going to have a high school student who's 17, 18 years old, transitioning into a young adulthood, and they're wanting to get that job and wanting to be more independent, having an Able account will make it a lot easier for them to do so. It won't solve, again, all of their issues, but it'll certainly help them be a little more financially secure. And again, hopefully a little more financially literate as they learn how having an Able account can empower them. So I think you go to my next slide, Stephanie.
Okay, and we also just had a question actually pop up in the
okay,
chat.
great.
It says we just moved from California, so my son has a California Able account. Does he need to transfer it to an Oregon Able account?
It is a great question. You don't have to. You can if you want to. So the thing that's unique about every state's Able program, the common thing is that all the interest you're earning is tax-free, and you can use it for disability-related expenses. That's true in California. That's true in Oregon. That's true in Virginia. That's true in any state that has an Able program. What's different is the state tax incentive that you get. So everyone, all the interest you're earning is tax-free. But in Oregon, you'll be eligible for that state income tax credit we talked about, up to $360 if you're a joint filer, $180 if you're a single filer. You won't get that with your Cal Able account because it's not an Oregon Able program. So if you're still paying California state income taxes, they may have a state tax benefit that makes sense to have that. The other thing is, and this is going to be different for other states, we in Oregon, for example, offer the prepaid card. Not every state offers a prepaid card with their Able program. Some might, but not everyone does. So it's a personal preference. There's no requirement that if you open the Able account, it has to be in the state you reside in. But usually there's some tax benefits for doing so, but it's a personal choice. I hope that answers that question.
And John, we have another question. It's, can the prepaid card be used to get cash?
Well, it doesn't work in an ATM machine. It's not tied to a bank account. So I think the short answer is no. It's really to be used as a way to make purchases from your Able account that you would traditionally not be able to because you don't have cash. But it's not like you can put it into an ATM machine at your local bank or even 7-Eleven. It's not tied to a bank account, and it's just tied to your Able account. And then you would decide, and technically you would just decide how much money you want on your Able prepaid card from your Able account. So let's say you have $6,000 in your Able account. Maybe you want to do $100 per month on your Able prepaid card. It's just up to you how much you want to put. I guess theoretically you could put it all on there. I've never met anyone who wants to do all of that, but you could. But it's not necessarily a cash situation, Stephanie, or whoever asked the question. And if you go to the last slide, Stephanie C, that is my contact information as far as the email. But we also have a customer service line that you can call, especially if you're trying to open an account and maybe you're getting stuck. They'll be in a much better position to help you deal with the website and the portal than I would be. So I encourage any enrollment related questions to call the customer service line. They also have multiple translators that can speak multiple languages in case English isn't your first language. So if you're needing a Spanish translation, a Russian translation, Vietnamese, whatever, we have multiple translators that can help people with that. I know both Stephanies have my contact information. If there's more of a programmatic related thing or something that you just want clarity on, you can, or the Stephanies can email me as well. But the customer service line, I would really encourage you to take advantage of if you're getting stuck opening an account online. And with that, that's my presentation. Happy to see if there's any other questions after kind of absorbing all the information. I know it's a lot to take in, but hopefully if you're on the call, you'll see this as a potential tool in the toolbox to make you and or family members or friends that you care about have a little bit easier time saving for everyday living expenses and making their life a little bit less stressful of trying to avoid that spend down. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. And again, appreciate everyone's time and attention for being here tonight.
So if you guys can, there's a QR code here. If you could scan it and fill out the survey, that would be wonderful. That's how we get funding. And it also tells us how we're doing. We can also put it in the chat. And then there was a question about having the slides being sent. So we will send the slide deck to all of you after the training. And also, if you fill out the survey, you're going to be entered to get a gift card. So there's some incentive there for you. And are there any last questions? Let's check the chat.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi. Hey, I'm the one that asked about the Cal Able account transferring to Oregon Able.
Okay.
I would like to go ahead and do that. How would I go about doing that? I can't find it on the website anywhere.
You would just let the people at Cal Able know that you want to do that, and then contact our Able program. And again, the customer service line can walk you through what you need to do. There might be
Okay,
a one-time transfer fee, but it shouldn't be a problem. We have nice reciprocal relationships with all the various state savings programs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the other question is, how can we find out if the individual meets the disability qualifications?
Well, again, I appreciate the question. And one thing I want to highlight again, remember that Disneyland example I said? There isn't a set criteria of what it takes in order to open up an Able account. The things to keep in mind is that you're going to want a medical professional that says, yes, this person has a mental or physical disability that improves. No, not what you can use it for. But if they're disabled, you have a doctor or a medical professional like a surgeon or someone who says, yes, this person has a mental or physical disability. They're going to sign that form. You hold on to it. And then if you ever get audited by the Department of Revenue, you'd have that doctor say, yes, that person is meeting the definition of the Social Security Administration's definition of what a disability is. And Stephanie, see if anyone wants to know exactly what that is. If you go back to my slideshow, it's like on the second or third slide. It has the SSA's definition there. But I think, as I referenced before, it'd be really a unique experience if someone opened an account, pretended they were disabled, and then opened it because of the $360 tax credit and maybe earning some interest tax free. That's a lot of potential fraudulent behavior for not a lot of money. So if you're pretty confident that a medical professional says you meet that definition, I wouldn't worry about it. I know there's sometimes people are concerned. My son is on the spectrum. I don't know how severe it is and whether they qualify. If you have a doctor that's telling you that your son or daughter is disabled, or you as an individual, that you meet this definition, I think you're fine. I think the important thing to remember is the onset of the age of eligibility. So the disability currently has to happen before you need to turn 26 years old. As of January 1st, that'll be raised to 46 years old. And remember, you could be 40 years old with Down syndrome. You were born with that disability. Even though you're 40, it happened before you were 26. You could open up an ABLE account. And then I saw something pop up and I didn't catch it. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, the last question was just about the survey, so we're good.
Oh, okay, great. And I hope the qualification of who can open up an ABLE account, that was answered. More questions? I said so. Oh, okay. Well, thank you again, everyone, for taking the time. I don't know if either Stephanie have any final remarks, but again, I really appreciate everyone's interest in the program and taking time out of probably a busy evening to listen to me talk about ABLE.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. And if there's any last questions, speak now. If not, have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.